A team of explorers is descending into a mine that lie abandoned for almost a century. They are searching for artifacts that the miners have left behind. They are on a quest to uncover the story of how these mines were worked.
I was always interested in how they mined the coal out of the mine. Had to find out the technology behind it. The artifacts you could find in the mine was kind of that was like a bonus.
Now, we will follow these explorers as they descend into the unknown and see what lies just beyond the portal to the past. Mike Hetman is a mine explorer searching for an abandoned iron mine in New York State. He has located the mine on a 19th century map, and now he and a team of explorers have set out looking for it.
When you're underground, you're in a time capsule. You're basically traveling back in time to a place where the miners were. It's not much different from when they left.
Mike has made a study of the iron mines found in the highlands of New York and New Jersey.
So we're fascinated with putting together the story of how things came to be, from pulling ore out of the ground to turning that ore into the objects and tools and such that we use every day. But there's a lost story to all of that we overlook. And you don't hear anything about this underground world that exists, but once you're immersed in it, it just pulls you in. I was hooked. We were hooked. That was it. This is what we want to do. This is really, really interesting.
He seeks to understand not only the technology and geology of the mines, but also the lives of the miners who worked them. Meanwhile, in Pennsylvania, mine explorers Chris Murley and Mike Sable have just discovered a mine that was abandoned in the early 1900s.
When I was a kid, I used to play in these holes out in the backyard. My grandpa, I thought they were caves. My grandfather told me they're mines, and he says, if you go in the mines, there's a city, underground city underneath there. And as soon as he said that, I was like, bam, the spark went on, lit the flame, and it's been going ever since. That's what got me going.
Unlike the iron mines that Mike explores, their focus lies in the coal mines of northeast Pennsylvania.
Just the anthracite region is what does it. I haven't been out on many other mine trips with other groups to any other locations, just because, again, it's the exploration part of it isn't really what does it for me as much as the local history and just the technology, how they mine the coal in the area. The artifacts you could find in the mine was kind of that was like a bonus. We didn't expect to find anything. You hear that when they were done mining, they left everything right inside the mine.
Definitely.
And it's true. They left work thinking they were going to work the next day and left everything behind. And you can nose around to the mines. You find mine cars, electric mine locomotives, hand tools, air tools, electric tools.
These mine explorers have a common bond. They are determined to rediscover the lost history of mining by descending underground and back in time.
And they took pride in this.
You go on this hike, right? You find this beautiful trail that just meanders its way into the forest, and there's hemlock trees, and it just seems like a beautiful hike, right? And then lo and behold, you find this very mysterious and surprising hole in the ground. And you're like, what is that? You know, it's not near anything. How did they get there? How did they even know to look here? There's lots of indicators that tell you the story of the mine underground. You just have to know how to interpret what you're looking at.
You don't know what's beyond that turn, the next turn. That's what just gets you going. It's like, wow, is there gonna be a shaft? Is there gonna be a mule barn? Am I gonna find an oil lamp like somebody just found? Like you just don't know what you're gonna find.
Yeah, it's really cool, the surprise factor of going in something for the first time. There's definitely curiosity of going in to explore the old mine, but just the act of exploring the mine isn't what is the exciting part about it. It's what you're gonna find. It's, you know, how they mined it.
You're literally overlaying maps of different eras so that you can figure out what old wagon road then is now just a weed-filled path, hardly discernible as a road today, that leads to the mine that you're looking for. You have to have patience, you have to do your homework, and you have to be willing to make mistakes. You don't always find what you're looking for.
Once we get there, there's no way up. Unless we go straight up the mountainside.
He wants to get on top of all those contour lines up here somewhere.
So what we're trying to figure out is whether we want to go through this or if we want to go around the lake that's over there. We're going through prickers, vines, poison ivy, and a little bit of wet rock face that we had to climb up with nothing to grab onto except vines.
If this is the only way to get to the mine, hands down, totally worth it. You have to be willing to look at the ground and see, that rock looks a little bit different. It doesn't look natural. It doesn't look like it was deposited here by glaciers. It doesn't look like it belongs here. Maybe it was put here. Maybe it was put here by a miner. This looks like magnetite right here. You can see the bluish hue. You're looking for telltale signs of a mine. They could be in the form of waste rock that was pulled out of the mine that has since been leaf covered, trees growing over this mound of earth that was once underground. You have to be able to pick up on these signs. You have to be able to tell that a tunnel was driven straight into the mountain right in front of you just by analyzing a gentle depression in the ground. You have to be able to pick up on these signs. You have to be willing to kick a few leaves under your feet and maybe spot a rail that was part of the narrow gauge railroad that led into the tunnel. We're here. We found number 4 at it. I'm gonna check it out right now.
Mike has just located an entrance to the iron mine he was searching for.
So we've just reached our location right now. This is one of 5 adits or horizontal tunnels that enter into the mountain perpendicular to the vein of rich iron ore. And we're gonna check this one out, photograph it, document it, and wish us luck. We got 3 forms of light and we're ready to do this.
He and his fellow mine explorers are about to descend underground, and their exploration will begin. The mine is flooded with groundwater that has seeped in through the rock. They will need to wade through it and hope it does not get too deep as they push on into the tunnel. Meanwhile, in Pennsylvania, Chris and Mike are slowly making their way deeper into the coal mine.
It's like a maze down there. You can go from one tunnel to another in upper levels, and if you really notice, if you get into the workings, everything looks the same in there. It's all the same.
Yeah, it's easy to get lost if you don't know, the layout of the mine. I like to get the mine maps, go over them before you go in the mine.
They have the maps needed to navigate the maze of workings.
Made a right turn at this Y here. Left turn at this Y. We passed this small rock tunnel that went back into the Buck Mountain working. There was a small little exploratory tunnel there, or exploratory chamber. We ran this gangway out and around, curved around here, came to an intersection where we made a right, ran this out to where it was robbed and caved, came back a couple chambers, took this chamber all the way down to where we came out to the upper part of this gangway here, came right down and we're at this intersection right here now.
I'll go straight. We'll check that tunnel when we come back. All right.
Always have your gas detector or flame safety lamp.
Check for methane gas. You lift it up to the ceiling. If the flame gets larger, you pull it down very, very slowly so it doesn't draw through the double screen filter on it. And
Hey, here's your paint can.
you check for
boys.
carbon dioxide or lack of oxygen near the floor because it works its way from the ground up.
Every part of the mine is interesting to me. The tunnels that travel 100 or more feet underground to get to what they're looking for, that's interesting.
Mike has traveled deep into the mine and has just reached a dead end.
This is a perfectly well-made tunnel, and it seems like they didn't pull an ounce of ore out of it. You couldn't find any evidence of mining whatsoever, just a barren tunnel. It looked like they really put a lot of effort into driving this tunnel into the mountain, but for what purpose? It seems they didn't find any ore, so we're going to follow southwest. We're going to look for adit number 3.
His search will need to continue on the surface for another opening. In Pennsylvania, Chris is pushing deeper into the coal mine as he navigates the maze of workings.
The mine was started in the late 1800s, and it was only first mined. You know, they couldn't come back in and pull the pillars and second mine it, with it being under the town. So you have all your pillars that are still intact. You know, they're full-size coal pillars, with just the small chambers and workings between them to keep the city supported. And so you find all these old things, mule shoes, old oil wick lamps, old stuff like that.
We're all walking quicker. Everybody's trying to walk quick, be that point man, the first guy. Because you want to be the first guy to come on the turn and say, oh my God, there's a shaft landing over there.
Yeah.
Building, there's an office.
Easy guy to find it, right?
Yeah, and everybody's making a run for a drop of what they're doing.
He is exploring the chambers where the coal was removed and the gangways where mine cars once rolled on wooden tracks.
You get on a main tunnel, it's like we're walking out right now, next thing you know, you're like a mile underground. It's like, wow, what they say is actually true.
Yeah, you really could go.
You could just keep going forever.
Get on the gangway or a tunnel and just walk forever. A lot of them are in really good shape, and you just keep on going, and that's really neat to check out.
He is finding artifacts that help him piece together the story of how it was mined.
See, I found an oil wick lamp that has some character to it. The hook broke off the back, so they fashioned this other kind.
Miners repair.
Miners repair. Man, look at this how straight it is. He definitely took some pride in this work.
Yeah, it almost looks like it was done yesterday.
I mean, if you just look at the gob balls, how perfect they are. I mean, they're not 3 inches off from straight, and they took pride in this. They didn't get paid to do this. They just had to get the rock out of the way so they could get the coal outside, and they got paid to put coal on the ground, not to build pretty gob balls. But boy, they sure did. I mean, it comes around the curve. It's all perfectly curved like this around. You don't see anything like this. Wow. Shut off all the lights. This is what you had to work with. You know, so I don't know if the camera will capture that. But I mean, look at that. Could you imagine building that gob wall with this? You know, this is a flame safety lamp. Your flame might have been a little bigger. That's about what would come off an oil wick lamp. So once your eyes adjust, all right, but I mean, where's the next rock that you have to pick up? You know, then you have to find where you go to put it again. It's not all lit up like it is today.
In New York, Mike has found a large tailings pile that indicates he is close to finding substantial workings.
So we're at the tailings pile of tunnel number 1. This is the biggest tunnel by far. It's the primary haulage way, and there is a ton of really good ore, really high-grade magnetite ore. Magnetite is a bluish rock, as you see here. It's 3 parts iron, 4 parts oxygen, bluish in color, has a slight luster. It's very hard, very hard. It requires significant blasting, and this is really what they were looking for. This is their gold. This is the gold to an iron miner.
I've just reached a massive stope. It's about 20 feet wide. The ceiling is about 70 feet high. And it just goes down into the mountain into complete darkness.
The remains of an old drill here.
In Pennsylvania, Chris shows how the mine was worked long ago. Holes were drilled into the coal seam.
Everybody would be working at the chamber at the same time, you know. Joe would be working up this chamber, and old Chuck and John would be working to the next one over.
What we're looking at here are containers that would have held black powder.
The holes were packed with gunpowder.
And you know, they'd yell fire over to him, and then he'd hide over in the airway, and then he'd be taking turns firing shots.
The powder was detonated and the coal blasted.
He would have dumped it into this chute. There's a little metal chute here. Stood here with shovels to help it down. The coal would slid into this mine car here. Push your buggy down here. Dump it down the sheet iron. And check that out. Sheet iron will all slide down into your gangway car.
The cars on the gangway were then pulled by mules out of the mine.
And if you do look around the mine, you can see an occasional mule, like a mule shoe here and there, and if you get lucky, you might find a hoof print. It's awesome.
This has been a turnout right here, where the empty and the loaded cars would have sat. So the mules would have brought the loaded cars here and assembled them into a trip to go outside. And then the empty cars would have been on another side, ready for them to take back into all the chambers.
To document a mine, I first examine the mine. I first have to understand where everything is, okay? We'll walk every tunnel, inspect every stope, and just get a general overview of what we're looking at. Try to interpret the features. Try to put everything together and build a story of what we're looking at. Then we can start looking at some of the details. We can examine the drill holes. We can look at the shape of the drill hole and determine whether it was made by hand or made with machinery. If it was made by hand, it's obviously either much older or the mining company didn't have the money to invest in pneumatic machinery. Holding a drill steel in one hand and pounding the end of it with a hammer, turning it a quarter turn each stroke, which would be single jacking. You would have double jacking, which is where one miner holds the drill steel while the other miner pounds the end with his hammer. They set a charge of black powder and they detonate it. It fractures the ore falls to the floor of the mine, and they scoop it up, fill it into an ore car, push the ore car away down a drift, or if it's a primitive mine, they use wheelbarrow. Fill the ore into the wheelbarrow, and by hand just wheelbarrow that ore out of the mine, or to the nearest station where they can have it hoisted up to the surface. There's evidence of an ore car sitting right in front of me. They use wooden ore carts. You can see the rusted iron bolts that fasten the wood to the iron. You can see a coupler right over there where this ore cart joined another. You're walking into their workspace, unadulterated, 150 or more years later. When you pick up that tool that the miner placed on the ledge, the last hand that touched the tool was the miner's.
The vein of iron was worked down from the surface. Holes were drilled with pneumatic drills.
You can tell by all these drill holes that they were working from the top down.
Well, they have to drill holes into this ore. The ore is often a harder material than the surrounding rock.
The ore was then hauled up out of the mine through a series of shafts, and later on ore cars that were hauled out to where the adit once exited on the tailings pile.
So we're about 160 or so feet below the surface of the ground. I'm looking straight up, and I can see the leaves from the trees up this shaft here. The stope is the excavation left behind after they removed the ore. The stope can be any size. The stope is the size of the ore body that was once there. The stope could be 10 feet wide. The stope could be 100 feet wide. The stope could be several hundred feet wide. It really just depends on how large the body of ore is and how much they took out. Okay, so right behind me here is where we believe is the fault which displaced the ore body some distance to the south. Basically, all of this area that we've been walking through, entirely stoped out, rich magnetite ore, and then suddenly they reach this point here, this is basically a slip zone where an entire body of rock just completely slid against the plane, and in doing so, carried the ore back. So they actually had to mine the ore from a separate entrance. But this is as far as you can go. There's no sign of the ore from this point behind me.
Once a mine is explored and its story is revealed, the mine explorers will photograph their finds to share with the outside world.
We've taken over 30,000 pictures in abandoned anthracite mines through the whole region. We've got a lot of great pictures of stuff that's never going to be around anymore. I mean, almost all of the mines that we've been in are now sealed. So these are pictures that nobody's ever going to see again. You know, my style of taking these pictures is to capture basically the layout of the mine and shots. And I always shoot black and white. Comes out pretty good. I usually take 2 or 3 at each location with, lighted from different areas. If you hold the light down low, you get some neat shadows, or up high, depending on the mine. Yeah, I mean, it's easy to fire off 200 shots. They're going to be gone one way or another, whether they get stripped out or they all get closed up, or who knows what's going to happen. So we'll keep taking pictures. We can take people and show them, without wanting to come into the mine, because not a lot of people want to come into the mine.
Yeah, they love the pictures. They always end the sentence, but
you're
they're nuts.
You guys are nuts.
They're nuts.
I'm not going to do that, but those are awesome pictures and great for bringing the history back alive and all that. But you're nuts.
For me, taking pictures is kind of a balance of portraying the mine in an interesting light. Like, I want to show some color, I want to show some dimensions, some lights and some darks, but I also want to show some truth. I want to show the viewer what the mine really looks like. And sometimes if you just take a generic flash photo, that might be the most accurate, realistic photo mathematically, but it's not the most accurate photo in terms of how you feel the experience going into the mine. You have to sometimes take your time and set the photo just right. If I have to tell my fellow mine researchers to stand in some certain position, I'm doing it to create perspective. Sometimes these features are hard to discern, especially if you haven't been underground. You don't know the relative heights and widths of a 19th century iron mine. You don't know that. You use figures in the photos so that you can get a sense of size, of relative size. My style of photography is always evolving, so in my earlier photos, I think I played a lot with, trying to make the mine look mysterious, and the pictures that stand out most to me are the ones that are the most dramatic, but yet tell a true story. And if only I can focus on taking pictures that are inspiring, in terms of appreciating the environment that these miners were in day in and day out, then I've done my job.
Their goal is complete. They will now make their way back out to the surface. These mine explorers have experienced a forgotten world lost to time. They are some of the few people to have explored these underground spaces. These explorers have become a part of the story of the abandoned mines they explore.
It took a little while to figure it out. I mean, it's not just something you walk into the mine and you can say, boom, this is how this was done.
And now through their photos and stories, can share the experience with the world.
These stories of miners, toiling underground and risking their lives to bring us the things that we take for granted is a story that should not be forgotten. That story has to live on. We have to figure out what went on. We have to tell the story of the history of America, and an important part of that is the mining history, and it's so overlooked.